Hey, hello. My name is Steve Jacobson. I'm the CEO and founder of Appinium. Thank you for attending today. Uh, I'm really excited to introduce you to what we think of as the Appinium River. And ultimately, what this is about connecting the dots around how people consume content and changing behavior from the first time you engage with them in that marketing lens all the way through the river of Appinium. When we think about the business, we look at the opportunity to truly engage with people in a whole new way. The companies that have the level of insight, the companies that actually understand the connective tissue between marketing, sales enablement, customer success, and learning are really going to be able to drive their businesses to new levels. We've been talking about this for a long time and really just came to fruition as a strategy. We had the pleasure to work with the Circonti team to actually integrate our native video solution with Pardot. We've had an absolute great relationship with Circonti. They've really helped us understand how that all works. And really, when we think about it, that's the top of the river. So every single person that you work with, either as a recruit, a customer, or a partner, always starts their engagement up here on the top of the river in that marketing lens. Companies today are using multiple video solutions, multiple content solutions to drive that engagement. The problem is there's no consistency in how that information then flows in to your CRM. And the even more problem with that is the information that's actually happening up here is not being tracked in that sales enablement lens. So we set out to actually build the Appinium River, to build this idea that we can literally track whatever content people are watching up in that marketing lens, if that's from an email that you send to them, if that's on a landing page, if that experience and they're consuming any sort of content from video to interactive video, to e-learning, to podcast, to PDF, it doesn't matter the content types. Companies have it wrong when they think about video. Video is extremely important. But if a person watches 3 pieces of content that are exactly the same, the fourth one is going to lose its essence. So we have to think about changing that. We have to have different content. We have to have different mediums to get it to them. It could be via email, it could be in a landing page, but that integration, that experience has to impact that journey right within Pardot. We have to be able to what you watched and what you do then drives different experiences in that marketing lens. But it shouldn't stop there. We shouldn't just get the lead and think, okay, we did our job. What we should be thinking about is how does that information up here drive this information here? How can we have salespeople, SDRs, BDRs get a more insightful lead to know what Johnny watched in the market? Did Johnny engage? Did Johnny read? Did Johnny listen? Did Johnny watch? And if he did watch, what did he click on? Did he click on any things? Did he actually answer any questions? Was there any interactive video to solicit information? And if so, shouldn't that be used in the sales enablement lens? Why does that information stay up in there? That should drive that connective tissue. So that then moves you into the sales enablement world, this idea of buyer enablement is how can we really make the buying process easier? That buying process might be that you're recruiting for a new person, but they're still buying because they're joining your company. And we should know what they did and we should be able to model that out. And then we should have a set of tools here that allow that SDR, that BDR, that recruit, or that recruiter to be able to engage with you in a different way. And so when we think about the Appinium River and we think about this connective tissue, it really is that. It's about how can we follow all the different things that a person does from the first time we engage with them through all the way down to the bottom of the learning. So what Appinium brings to the table is not just our technology, but the thought leadership around the fact that we can help you drive the river with your organization. And in many cases, there's really 14 different systems we're doing. So I wanted to really go through and explain to you why this matters and why this is changing the conversation. This is not about selling you on opinion, but I really care about the fact that you understand what we think about every day in the market and how we're trying to really drive this conversation to the point where people can literally start to actually track what people do through the entire organization. And the real key to this is if companies do this right, we really think about it from a Salesforce lens, Marketing Cloud, Pardot, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Experience Cloud, Data Cloud. If you do it right, you'll have such an amazing set of data, which we call the bottom of the river, the lake. You're going to be able to use deep level of insights to take that information back and go back to the top of the river, go back to that Pardot and understand what those people's behaviors were. Compare that to the performance data that's within your CRM, what's within your marketing inside of ParDot, compare that data, and then start that journey again. And that level of insight and that level of power will give our customers, give people in the market that are looking at connecting these systems together into one power that other organizations can't. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them. If not, I'm going to jump in and kind of walk you guys through how we see this lens and really why we think it really matters to the market. But again, I love talking about this stuff. So if there's anything that I can address to all of you, I'd much rather be engaged in a conversation than presenting to y'all, because I just love the fun part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and walk you through a few things. Thank you guys for joining today. Really excited to be here. So really this session outline is about driving this customer success, and ultimately it's about the river. And that's why I wanted to start with the river and really explain to you kind of how we think about it and why we're so invested into ParDot and why ParDot is so important to us, and the mechanism to be able to stop that river, to be able to engage with people, to start that conversation and connect it all the way through is really what the driver of this idea is. That's the river. And when we first met with Andrea for Sercante, it was just such an awesome experience, because she really got how this river, if this data, this can drive this engagement and analytics. This is all about the why. So you can go out and use different solutions and understand that people might consume content. But if you're not asking yourself the why did Johnny take it? Did it drive results? Am I correlating that to the performance of the organization? Then the answer is, why are you making the content? I literally was on a call this morning with one of a prospect of ours in the UK, and they're making all kinds of videos and putting it on websites and putting it on landing pages. And I asked him a very direct question: what's the output? What are you trying to achieve? He's like, well, we want people to engage with us. Well, how are you tracking that? They have no idea. They're just, well, people watch it and that's good. It's not good enough anymore. If you're not driving the why and you don't understand the output or the performance of that entire conversation, then there's really no reason to do it or spend the money. So when we think about the river, this is the river in these little circles here. You've got Appinium, ParDot in the top left. You've got Appinium Enablement on the right, Appinium Video Case in the bottom left, and Appinium Learning. This makes up the river. But that river starts with ParDot. As an example, from a product perspective, we think about the entire river, not just these different parts. And so for us, companies using ParDot, they're right. They're driving the river in the right way. We want to work with them to help them push the right content to landing pages and videos and emails and things of that nature, because without the top of the river, the whole river starts to fail. If you don't have the mountain putting the water into the creek, which turns into a river, we're never going to get that level of data. So that river always starts in a marketing lens, and it should end in the data cloud. It should end in analytics. But if we do this right, by the time you actually get to learning, then individuals will be able to onboard them in a whole new way. We'll have insight into that customer, into that partner, into that recruit that frankly other organizations don't have, which I believe gives the companies that are doing this an extreme competitive advantage in the market. But why Appinium? Why would that matter? Well, all of this is native to Salesforce. The videos, just for the record, are not stored within Salesforce. The experiences, you can use any storage to do that, but you don't want to store within Salesforce due to cost. We can add interactions to these videos. You can create video campaigns in real time. You can do what you do today with the current technologies, but now you can do it within a native application and have all the data flowing into Salesforce to create the top of that river. Here's an example of that. So there's really simple for people to do this. If you're a ParDot admin working with ParDot, you simply get the video, you load it, grab the link, and pot it wherever you want, just like you do today with current technologies like Vimeo and Vidyard and different things. But again, now it's all within Salesforce, and now we have that connective tissue between ParDot and Salesforce. And to us, this is the kicker, right? Is being able to drive that top of the river, to ask yourself the why, because I believe our actor in this case is Mike Cruiser. As some of you guys might know, we've named our actor Mike Cruiser here, and Mike wants to know when he sends out that content, or a person hits a landing page, or that video might be sent through a journey in an email. He wants to know, does that lead actually what happens next? That connective tissue, that handshake between marketing and sales enablement is now there. And then that handshake between sales enablement and customer success is now there. And that handshake between learning and customer enablement and customer success and partner enablement and recruits, the entire river, the entire organization now is connected. And what happens in learning can drive marketing. What happens in marketing can now drive the experience inside of sales enablement and all the way through. So that's great. What do we do next? How does this work together? How would I start this journey? Well, starting the journey is really simple. If you're already using Pardot, which the assumption is you're here today, you are, you do what you're doing today. But instead of using the tools that are not connected in the river, you move to a connected foundation, to a connected platform. Because at the top of the river, that big lens up there is marketing. And ultimately for that is to actually track that information all the way through. Companies ask me all the time, well, how do I start? How do I use AI? How do I use this data? We got to start somewhere. And you got to jump off. It doesn't matter if you jump in the LMS lens or you jump in the river on the service lens or the sales lens or marketing lens. The key is to get in the river. The key is to actually start to think about how can I connect these systems, to stop thinking about these as individual systems or buyers, and start to think of your organization as one connected flow. That data needs to flow from the top to the bottom. And if we do it right, then we become a more insightful organization. I love to tell how my wife is a big Amazon buyer, and she uses Amazon all the time, obviously, like many of us. And they know that I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old because we start to get advertisements. They know exactly my wife's buying behavior. They know exactly what she does when she does it, so they can help her. And in essence, they're changing their behavior. And ultimately, what this entire game about is to track that performance across the entire lens from marketing to learning, so you can also have a more insightful business, so you can actually impact behavior. Because the organizations with the best data, the organizations with the most impactful data, and trusted, insightful data that you know that Johnny is Johnny is Johnny is Johnny are going to be the companies that are actually successful moving forward. And I believe this with everything I am. That's why we're leading this and out there pontificating about the idea of this connective tissue. It's not okay to buy 14 systems anymore. We have to be consecutive. We have to be have the same information flowing through. We have to trust that data. And the more integrations that you have within the flow of your river, the less trusted that data is. The more cohesive it is, that one flow of water. And that's really what the metaphor is really for, is to talk about that idea of that river starting at a creek in the marketing lens and actually ending up in this data lake. And that data lake is all that information, all the performance data that we're now collecting to be able to go back to the top of the river and drive that marketing lens. Are there any questions?
Hey, Stephen, is there a certain amount of seconds that have to go by for it to be considered a watch on a video? If we wanted to do something like add them to a campaign after they watched a video?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Does a certain amount of seconds have to go by to be considered a watch on the video?
No. If it's 1 second, well, that's all the settings that you can work on. But from a data perspective, no. If they watch the content for 1 second, that actually automatically creates a transcript, and that transcript record is what's going to flow with them the entire time. So as soon as I engage with a piece of content in any way, that will in real time create a transcript record, which I can go into detail what that means, but that transcript is actually what is the correlation between me and that content. And that content in real time will say, okay, Steve watched this piece of content for this amount of time. It could be a second. It could be I launched it and bailed out. That's extremely insightful information. If someone starts something and they bail out in 3 seconds, that should tell you something. But you also would know how many times they launch it. Do they fast forward? Do they rewind? If it's a PDF, how many pages they stay in it? If it's a podcast, how long do they watch it? How many times do they engage with it? You'll also know how many times they engaged with it and where during the entire river. So you'll know if they watched it in a marketing lens compared to a learning lens compared to a sales lens. All of that data is being tracked 100% within Salesforce, and all that information can be used inside Pardot to drive those journeys in real time.
Whoa, that's a lot of data.
It's a lot of data.
That's good.
100%. Okay. So when we think about that data, you have to then be ready for that information. You have to, as a business, be ready to start to use it. But the reality is you're not going to have enough data for really to start making actionable insights for 3 to 4 or 5 months, because you want to correlate to performance. And that's really what the power of this conversation is. It's not about tracking what Johnny watched, because frankly, who cares? We should be asking ourselves a much broader and different question. This is where the market has to change. We have to stop tracking what Johnny watched and thinking that matters. It does not matter. It's the performance of what happened by Johnny watching the content that matters. And then we should ask ourselves a different question. Should Johnny even have watched that content? Because we're so stuck in this about, oh, I got 42 hits on my YouTube video. Who cares? Who cares about those hits? Who cares about how many people might have watched a video? What we need to be doing is tracking the performance. And with Pardot and Salesforce, you have an opportunity to actually have the hits and have that information. But without the performance data, it's just a hit. Who cares? The answer is, did it drive the behavior that you were looking to drive within that individual or that persona? That is the kicker to the whole river. Because if you're not tracking that and that doesn't matter to you, then really, why are you building content? Why do you care about spending the money on content to get it out there? But it's to drive performance and it's to change behavior. And the more insightful organizations are going to be impact behavior. And the ones that can impact behavior that can drive their businesses to whole new heights. And that's what's super exciting to me, is the ability to track that performance information coupled with the transaction, the learning, the data of the people consuming the content. And I look forward to a world where people get the exact right content to drive at the exact right time the behavior that they want, so they can be the best version of themselves. And that Pardot admin, that sales enablement professional, the customer success professional, and the learning professional can actually work in concert together to drive the entire river. So the organization of itself becomes extremely powerful. And now those 4 different individuals and those 4 distinct different buyers that have always bought on their own in their own little silo have now become one flow, have become one river. And collectively, they become heroic at the organization because they're driving the business to new heights. You're reducing your bottom line. You're selling to the right companies. You're pushing the right content to the right people in that marketing lens. And that sales lens, you're actually targeting the exact right people. You know who they are and what they are. You have account-based video marketing because you know contacts, you know what people are engaging. That's the game. And if you believe in that and you believe that the game can actually give you data to track performance, then you have to believe that the river's the way to go. If you don't, that's okay. But this is my whole belief, and it's everything to what we think about as a business. And yes, I love it. Is there any other questions, Celine?
No more questions from my end or that I can see. If anybody has questions, feel free to type them in chat. We have about 3 minutes left in the session, so any last minute questions, get them in.
Yeah, and I'm not a big PowerPoint demo guy here, so we are going to be in the demo jam tomorrow, showing some stuff for 3 minutes, so we can do that then. But I hope what you learned today as an output, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate Serconte thinking enough of our team to let us be a part of this exciting ParDreamin this year. It's awesome, and we're very honored to be here. If you believe in data, and if you believe that people's experiences around content and what they do and how they do it can really drive your business and give you power to give you insight into what's actually happening, we'd love to have a conversation. It's not to sell you a product, just to talk and have a good time. I love this stuff and pontificate different things. And even if you think that we're wrong, let's have a conversation. Let's debate the merits of that and have some good time, because ultimately we're all in the same circles and we're all trying to drive our businesses to do great things. And we believe that if you can track what people do, if you know what content they like, that can rock. And I'll leave you guys with this. I'm very open about the fact that I have ADHD, and a lot of my behavior is driven by my ADHD. If you know when you're selling to me that I have ADHD, then you're watching what I do, then you'll know that I'm never going to watch any of your content for more than 1.5 minutes to maybe 2 minutes. I'm not going to read your PDF, and I'm sure not going to read a book or listen to a podcast. It's not the way I learn. So how are you going to actually impact me? How are you going to help me want to buy your product or your service or work with your brand? You better get to know me and see my behavior. Because if you do that, I'm all in. But if you don't know who I am, you don't know what I do, and you don't know how I've been going on the river, you're going to lose me. And to me, that's the foundational belief of this whole business is we have to know who people are and what they are so we can help them be the greatest version of themselves they are. And if you help them do that, then you've impacted their behavior. If you've impacted their behavior the right way, there's a high probability that will lend itself to a good client, a good partner, and a good recruit for your organization. Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks, Stephen. All right, I think